It is 1857 and the Indian subcontinent is a powder keg waiting to explode. The British, who first arrived as traders, have now ruled for over a century. For years, they have forced the people of India to endure the exploitation and humiliation of colonial rule. But it is time for change. The natives are looking to fight back for their long-lost dignity and land. But in this tragic tale, what woefully awaits them is not only a nightmare in the flesh, it is the side of man that has never known an end. The British, they had thoroughly manipulated India. They had manipulated its culture, its economy, and ultimately even its people. They had divided the locals along religious and caste lines while keeping them all in perpetual poverty. The people had no rights. Women, for example, were left vulnerable to sexual exploitation, and the men were forced to work ruthless hours for meager pay. This carefully curated strategy had worked flawlessly for a long 100 years, but change was starting to catch up. To keep such a large population under control was no easy task, and the British knew this very well and were always on the lookout for potential rebellions. One group capable of fighting back was Indian soldiers serving in the British Army, known as sepoys. The sepoys were the backbone of the British Army in India, and the British knew that they had to keep them loyal at all costs. But earning loyalty was never an option. It was viciously forced through hierarchy and trampling of boundaries. The act of trampling boundaries was a psychological tactic used to undermine the beliefs and values of the Indian people. One such tactic was the introduction of a new rifle, the Enfield rifle, which required the use of a cartridge that had to be bitten off before being loaded into the rifle. The cartridge, however, was greased with animal fat extracted from pigs and cows. It was a clever attempt at killing two birds with one stone, as it was not only disrespectful to the majority Hindu population of India, it also violated the code of Islam. The British did not anticipate that by attacking both religions at once, they had united the people of India against one common enemy, the heinous colonizers. The mutiny began in Meerut, a city in the north of India, on May 10, 1857. A group of sepoys, Indian soldiers who were employed by the British East India Company, refused to use the new cartridges for their rifles. The British quickly jailed and publicly humiliated them. This sparked a wider rebellion which led to the sepoys joining forces with civilians who were equally fed up with British rule. The British were caught off guard and it quickly spiraled out of control. The mutiny was marked by unspeakable violence, with both sides committing atrocities against each other. In May 1857, the British launched a massive assault on Delhi, determined to recapture the city after the rebellion had gained control. The fighting was brutal and intense, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The British were eventually able to breach the city's walls and capture key positions, but the rebels refused to surrender and continued to put up fierce resistance. The turning point of the siege came on September 14th, when the British finally succeeded in breaching the walls of the heavily fortified Red Fort, which was the rebels' last stronghold in the city. In the ensuing chaos, the British soldiers unleashed a wave of brutal violence against the rebel defenders and the city's civilian population. According to reports, the British soldiers went on a rampage, looting, burning, and killing indiscriminately. The streets of Delhi were littered with the bodies of men, women, and children, while buildings were set on fire and precious cultural artifacts were destroyed. The soldiers showed no mercy, bayoneting anyone they came across and even firing cannon into crowds of unarmed civilians. The scale of the devastation was unprecedented, and the city of Delhi was left in ruins. On the Indian side, in June 1857, a group of Indian rebels led by Nana Sahib captured a British garrison in the city of Kanpur. The rebels took over 200 British men, women, and children hostage and imprisoned them. For several weeks, negotiations were carried out between the rebels and the British, with both sides attempting to reach a peaceful resolution. However, tensions remained high, and the situation rapidly deteriorated. As supplies began to run low, the rebels became increasingly desperate, and their demands for safe passage out of Kanpur grew more insistent. On June 25th, Nana Sahib received news that British reinforcements were on their way to Kanpur, and fearing that his position was about to be compromised, he ordered his men to kill the British hostages. The rebels hacked the captives to death with swords and knives, while others were shot, bayoneted, or thrown down a well. In addition to the violence and bloodshed, the mutiny also led to widespread rape, pillage, and looting, as no woman or child was spared. The British may have suffered casualties in the thousands, but it is estimated that the local population of India declined by several million in the years following. The mutiny finally came to an end in 1858, when the British government sent reinforcements to India and regained control of the country.